People will ask how you did it, and they will not understand the answer, because what happened to you did not happen by strength, by discipline, or by willpower alone. It happened because God placed his hand upon you and carried you through a place no one had ever crossed before. You are not standing where you are by accident. You are not breathing today by coincidence. You are the first person ever to pass in 40 days. And that is not the number chosen by chance, but a testimony written by God himself. There are moments in life when time becomes a witness. Days stop being ordinary and hours begin to speak. 40 days is not just a measure. It is a furnace. It is a place where excuses die, where comfort is stripped away, where the soul is laid bare before God. Many entered that place with dreams, with promises, with determination, but they did not come out. They turned back. They gave in. They surrendered to fear, to hunger, to doubt, to the voice that said, "This is too much." But you did not turn back. You stayed. You endured. You crossed. When God allows someone to be the first, it is never for applause. It is never for pride. It is because he is declaring something to the world through that life. God is saying, "Watch what I can do when a person trusts me beyond reason." You did not just survive 40 days. You proved that obedience is stronger than limitation. That faith is louder than pain, and that surrender unlocks what effort never could. There were days when your body asked for relief and your mind begged for permission to quit. There were nights when silence felt heavy and time moved slowly, when every second demanded a decision to continue. God was not absent in those moments. He was watching. He was measuring, not your strength, but your trust. God does not test to destroy. He tests to reveal. And what was revealed in you was something rare, something weighty, something heaven does not place lightly on a person. Do not think for one moment that others have not tried. Many began with confidence, speaking boldly about what they would accomplish. But confidence without surrender collapses when pressure comes. God was not looking for the loudest voice. He was looking for the deepest obedience. You were quiet enough to listen. You were humble enough to yield. You were faithful enough to stay when everything in you wanted to leave. 40 days changes a person. It rearranges priorities. It exposes attachments. It strips away the false sense of control. You learned something that cannot be taught in comfort, that God sustains in ways the world cannot explain. When resources run out, when explanations fail, when logic breaks down, God remains. You did not pass because you were exceptional. You passed because you trusted God when nothing else made sense. People will celebrate the result, but they did not see the process. They did not see the internal battles, the private tears, the silent prayers that were not spoken with eloquence, but with desperation. God hears the prayers that are too heavy for words. He listens to the heart that says, "I cannot do this without you." That is the prayer that moves heaven because it leaves no room for pride. Being the first is a responsibility. God never allows someone to break through a barrier without expecting them to carry the weight of that breakthrough. You are now a sign. Your life is evidence that obedience is still rewarded, that endurance still matters, that God still honors those who trust Him fully. You have become a living answer to those who say it cannot be done. But understand this clearly. The 40 days were not the destination. They were the doorway. God does not test someone to leave them where they are. He tests them to prepare them for what is coming. You are not refined to be admired. You are refined to be trusted. God is shaping your inner life so He can place greater things in your hands without them destroying you. There is a difference between being chosen and being prepared. Many are chosen, but few are willing to endure what preparation demands. Preparation is uncomfortable. It is lonely. It feels unfair, but it is necessary. God prepares in private before He reveals in public. What you endured when no one was watching will speak louder than any words you ever say. Do not rush past this moment. Do not minimize what God has done. This is a marker in your life. Before this, you knew about faith. After this, you know God. Knowledge informs, but experience transforms. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. You have seen what God can do when you remove limits from your obedience. There will be people who misunderstand you now. Some will admire you, some will question you, some will quietly resent you because your obedience confronts their excuses. Let them talk. God did not bring you this far for approval. He brought you here for purpose. When God elevates someone, it is never to make them distant. It is to make them useful. Guard your humility carefully. The moment someone becomes the first, pride waits at the door. Pride says, "Look what you did." Faith says, "Look what God carried me through." Never forget who sustained you when strength failed. Never forget who spoke peace when your mind was overwhelmed. God resists pride, but multiplies grace to the humble. You may feel empty now, and that is not weakness, that is space. God often empties before He fills. He removes reliance on self so that dependence on Him becomes natural, not forced. What you feel is not loss, it is readiness. God is about to place something new within you, something that could not coexist with what was there before. Remember this: being first does not mean being finished. It means being entrusted. Others will follow the path you opened, but your role is different. You carry the weight of proof. You carry the responsibility of example. You carry the calling to remain faithful even when the applause fades. There will be a temptation to explain yourself, to justify what you did, to defend your experience. You do not owe anyone an explanation. God knows. Heaven knows. That is enough. Let your life speak. Let your consistency preach. Let your character confirm what your testimony declares. What God has begun in you is not fragile. It is deliberate. It is measured. It is rooted in obedience. You did not pass 40 days to return to shallow living. You passed to step into deeper alignment with God's will. Everything now will be measured against what you learned there. Your patience will be deeper. Your discernment sharper. Your prayers heavier with authority because they come from experience, not theory. There will be new challenges, but you will not face them as the same person. The one who entered the 40 days is not the one who came out. Something was left behind. Fear, doubt, self-reliance, and something was gained. Trust, clarity, and a quiet confidence anchored in God. Do not rush to the next assignment. Let God seal what He has done. Let Him establish your footing. breakthrough without foundation leads to collapse, but breakthrough anchored in obedience produces longevity. God is not interested in a moment. He is interested in a lifetime of faithfulness. You are living proof that when God speaks and a person obeys fully, limits are broken. The world measures possibility by history, but God measures it by obedience. You were willing to obey where others hesitated, and God honored that decision. And even now, God is still speaking, still shaping, still guiding, still calling you deeper. Not to impress the world, but to remain close to Him. Because everything that comes next will require the same trust, the same surrender, the same willingness to move forward even when the path is unfamiliar, knowing that the God who carried you through 40 days has not finished what He began in you. What you endured has altered the way heaven will trust you. God does not entrust weighty things to fragile faith. He allows pressure not to crush, but to confirm. What was confirmed in you is stability. When storms rise, God looks for those who will not panic. When silence stretches long, He looks for those who will not abandon their post. You stood firm when there was no applause, no guarantee, no visible reward. That kind of faith does not shout, it stands. And God notices those who stand. There is a sacred difference between endurance and survival. Survival waits for escape. Endurance commits to obedience regardless of outcome. You did not merely count days, you surrendered them. Each day was an offering placed in the hands of God. That is why you crossed when others fell away. God responds to surrender with strength. When a person releases control, God releases provision. When a person says, "I trust you even here," heaven responds, "You will not walk alone. You discovered something the world refuses to teach, that silence is not absence. Silence is often instruction. When God does not speak loudly, He is training the heart to listen deeply. In those quiet moments, your spirit learned to discern what matters and what does not. Noise lost its power. Distraction loosened its grip. God was reshaping your inner hearing so that when He speaks softly, you will still obey fully. There were moments when your mind attempted to negotiate with discomfort. That is the place where many fall. Negotiation weakens obedience. God was not asking you to be clever. He was asking you to be faithful. Faithfulness does not argue with instruction. It trusts the one who gives it. You chose trust over negotiation, and that choice carried you through. Now understand this. Passing the 40 days was not about proving something to God. He already knew what was inside you. It was about revealing something to you. You learned that your limits were not as fixed as you believed. You learned that fear loses authority when confronted with obedience. You learned that God provides strength in layers, releasing just enough for the next step, teaching you to walk without seeing the full path. God rarely shows the whole picture because He wants relationship, not performance. He wants dependence, not display. If He showed everything at once, obedience would be transactional. But when He reveals, step by step, faith becomes relational. You learn to walk one day at a time, one decision at a time, trusting that God would meet you there. This is how God builds leaders, not with shortcuts, but with refining. Not with comfort, but with clarity. Not with speed, but with depth. What He is doing in you now is far greater than what you endured then. He is anchoring your identity so that future success will not shift your character. There will come moments when others look to you for answers. Do not rush to impress. Speak from what you have lived. Authority is born from obedience, not knowledge alone. Your words will carry weight because they come from experience. When you speak about trust, it will not sound theoretical. When you speak about endurance, it will not sound rehearsed. It will resonate because it was forged in real fire. God is careful about who He places influence upon. Influence without humility corrupts. Influence without discipline collapses. Influence without God becomes dangerous. That is why He led you through what you could not escape. He was protecting you from yourself. He was guarding your future by shaping your present. There may be moments when you question why others receive recognition while you receive responsibility. Do not confuse the two. Recognition fades, responsibility multiplies. God entrusts responsibility to those who will carry it without complaint. You have been entrusted because you have proven you will not abandon the weight when it becomes heavy. You will notice that your desires are changing. Things that once mattered feel smaller now. That is not loss. That is alignment. God adjusts appetite before He assigns position. He reduces hunger for approval so He can increase hunger for purpose. What you crave now will determine where you go next. Do not be surprised if God asks you to wait after breakthrough. Waiting after victory teaches restraint. It keeps the heart anchored. It reminds the soul that God is the source, not the experience. The 40 days taught endurance. The waiting will teach wisdom. There is a quiet authority forming in you. It does not demand attention. It does not chase validation. It simply rests in trust. This is the authority God uses most. It does not intimidate. It invites. It does not dominate. It stabilizes. People will feel safe around you because you have learned to be still under pressure. Never underestimate what God can do through a life that remains. Surrendered after achievement. Many surrender on the way up and tighten control at the top. You must do the opposite. Hold nothing tightly except obedience. Everything else must remain open in your hands. You have become evidence that faithfulness still matters in a world addicted to speed. You are proof that depth outlasts noise, that obedience, though costly, is never wasted. God remembers every unseen moment. He honors every private decision. He records every act of trust. As you move forward, guard your inner life fiercely. Do not allow familiarity to dull reverence. The God who carried you through 40 days is the same God who will guide you through the unknown ahead. Stay sensitive, stay responsive, stay humble. There will be days when the memory of those 40 days will return to strengthen you. When new challenges rise, you will remember what God has already done. Memory will fuel courage. Experience will silence doubt. You will know, not hope, that God is faithful. And even now, as life unfolds, God is still shaping you, still drawing you closer, still calling you to walk not by comfort but by conviction, not by sight but by trust. Knowing that the same God who sustained you when strength was gone will continue to lead you forward, step by step, purpose by purpose, until everything He intended through your obedience is fully revealed and fulfilled. What God is cultivating in you now is discernment. Discernment is not suspicion, it is clarity. It is the ability to recognize what aligns with God's purpose and what merely appeals to desire. After walking through what you walk through, your spirit has been trained. You will sense when something is not right, even if it looks good. You will feel restraint where others feel excitement. That restraint is not fear, it is wisdom born from intimacy with God. Many people chase experiences, but God is shaping identity. Experiences impress the mind, but identity anchors the soul. You are no longer driven by the need to prove anything. The 40 days dismantled that hunger. You learned that approval does not sustain obedience and recognition does not replace presence. God alone is enough, and when that truth settles deeply, nothing can shake you easily. You will encounter moments when obedience costs relationships, opportunities, or comfort. Do not be alarmed. Cost is often confirmation. When obedience requires sacrifice, it confirms that you are not following convenience. God does not bargain with destiny. He leads with intention, and intention always demands trust. There is a strength that comes from knowing who you answer to. When God becomes your reference point, the opinions of others lose their power. You no longer measure yourself by comparison, because comparison collapses under obedience. God never compares you to others. He calls you to be faithful to what He placed in your hands. You may notice that God will begin to speak to you through subtle moments, a pause, a hesitation, a quiet urging to wait or move. These are not random. God trains those He trusts to hear Him beyond words. Sensitivity is the language of closeness. Guard it carefully. Do not allow the memory of hardship to harden your heart. Let it soften your compassion. You know what endurance feels like. You know the weight of silent struggle. That understanding will make you patient with others. Strength without compassion intimidates, but strength with compassion heals. God is not preparing you to stand above others, but to stand steady when others lean. You will become a place of reassurance, not because you have all the answers, but because you have learned to trust God when answers were absent. That kind of presence is rare, and God values it deeply. There will be seasons when progress feels slower than expected. Remember, God is not delayed. He is deliberate. Speed excites, but depth sustains. What God is building in you is meant to last. Foundations take time, but they hold weight when storms arrive. Never forget that obedience is not proven in moments of clarity, but in moments of uncertainty. Anyone can move when the path is obvious. Faith moves when direction is quiet. You have already proven that you can move without reassurance. That is why God can guide you into places others fear. Your confidence will not come from certainty, but from trust. You may not always know where the path leads, but you will know who leads you. That knowledge steadies the heart. It removes panic. It replaces urgency with peace. As influence grows, temptation will whisper that you deserve ease. Resist that lie. Ease without purpose weakens resolve. God strengthens through engagement, through dependence, through continual alignment. Stay close. Stay teachable. Stay aware that every step forward is sustained by grace, not merit. You are learning that God's faithfulness is not seasonal. It does not fluctuate with circumstance. It remains constant. That realization reshapes fear. When fear arises, it finds no footing because memory speaks louder. God has been faithful before. Carry that memory with humility. Let it remind you that nothing you accomplish is isolated. Every breakthrough is connected to obedience. Every open door linked to surrender. Gratitude will keep your heart light, and humility will keep your path clear. And as you continue walking, remember this quietly but firmly. God did not bring you through the 40 days to admire your endurance, but to establish your trust. Trust that will carry you through future unknowns, through moments when direction feels distant, through times when obedience again asks more than comfort, knowing that the God who sustained you once remains present still, guiding each step with purpose, patience, and unwavering faithfulness. There is a sacred maturity that forms when a person learns to obey God without demanding explanation. Explanation satisfies curiosity, but obedience satisfies purpose. God does not reveal everything because He is guarding the heart from becoming dependent on certainty instead of trust. You have learned that clarity often comes after movement, not before it. When you step forward without full understanding, heaven responded with guidance. That is the rhythm of faith. Move, then see. What you carry now is not enthusiasm. It is conviction. Enthusiasm burns fast and fades quickly. Conviction endures. It remains steady when emotions fluctuate. It stays rooted when circumstances shift. God is far more interested in conviction than excitement, because conviction sustains obedience when excitement disappears. You did not rely on emotion to carry you. You relied on trust, and that trust did not fail. You are also learning that obedience refines speech. Words become fewer, but weightier. You no longer feel pressure to explain yourself endlessly. Silence has become comfortable. Silence is not weakness, it is confidence. When God is your witness, you do not need to defend your journey. You can let outcomes speak. There will be times when others misunderstand your restraint. They may call it hesitation or fear, but you know the difference. You are not afraid to move. You are careful to move with God. Impulsiveness masquerades as boldness, but wisdom waits for alignment. God does not rush those He leads deeply. Your heart has been trained to recognize false urgency. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Not every open door is meant to be entered. God values discernment over activity. Movement without direction drains the soul, but movement with God restores it. You are learning, to rest even while advancing. One of the quiet lessons of endurance is learning where strength truly comes from. Strength does not always feel powerful. Sometimes it feels like persistence without emotion. Sometimes it feels like choosing obedience when enthusiasm is absent. That is strength. God sees that strength and honors it. You have also discovered that fear changes its voice as a person grows. It becomes subtler. It disguises itself as logic, as caution, as reason. But discernment exposes it. Discernment says, this does not align with God. And when alignment matters more than comfort, fear loses its influence. God is shaping your ability to remain steady under pressure. Pressure reveals what a person relies on. When pressure came, you did not collapse inward or lash outward. You turned upward. That posture matters. Heaven responds to those who look beyond themselves. There will be moments when obedience feels lonely again. Growth often separates before it connects. Do not confuse separation with abandonment. God sometimes isolates to deepen clarity. He reduces noise so instruction can be heard. Loneliness, when surrendered, becomes focus. Your relationship with time has changed. You no longer feel enslaved by urgency. You understand that God operates outside impatience. Delay does not threaten promise. Waiting does not weaken purpose. God's timing protects what His power provides. Be mindful of how you speak to yourself now. Internal language shapes external obedience. Speak truth to your soul. Remind yourself who carried you through. Memory, when anchored in gratitude, becomes fuel rather than weight. You are not meant to replicate the 40 days again, but you are meant to carry what they produced. Discipline, awareness, trust, humility, these are portable. God is not calling you to repeat the trial, but to live from the transformation. As your path unfolds, you may be asked to stand when others retreat, to remain calm when others panic, to trust when others doubt. That is not coincidence. God prepares people for specific moments long before they arrive. Preparation often feels unnecessary until the moment demands it. Never despise the quiet seasons. Quiet seasons sharpen hearing. They realign motive. They remind the heart that God is not impressed by noise, only by obedience. Fruit grows in silence before it is seen. You are learning that true confidence is calm. It does not boast. It does not rush. It does not compete. It simply moves when God says move and waits when God says wait. That confidence cannot be shaken by opinion or delay. And as you continue walking forward, carrying both memory and expectation, know this deeply within. God is not finished revealing what obedience can unlock through a willing heart. And every step ahead will continue to be shaped by the same faith, the same surrender, the same trust that carried you through when the path was hardest and the outcome was unseen. And only God remained. Stand where you are now and look honestly at your life. Ask yourself what you have been avoiding, what you have delayed, what you have justified instead of surrendered. God is not calling you to impress anyone. He is calling you to obey. Obedience is not dramatic, but it is decisive. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It responds to divine instruction. If God is speaking to your heart now, do not silence that voice. Do not postpone what requires courage today. The cost of delay is often greater than the cost of obedience. Let this moment become a turning point. Release what has kept you comfortable but stagnant. Lay down the habits, the fears, the compromises that quietly weaken your devotion. God does not ask for perfection. He asks for honesty. Come before Him as you are, not as you pretend to be. He already knows your weakness, yet He still invites your trust. When you give God your whole heart, He gives you direction, strength, and peace that cannot be manufactured. Decide today to walk closer, not occasionally, not emotionally, but intentionally. Let your daily choices reflect reverence. Let your private life honor God before your public life ever speaks. When obedience becomes your language, God becomes your confidence. You will not need constant reassurance because your spirit will be anchored. You will not fear the unknown because you will trust the one who guides your steps. Carry this truth with you. God does not abandon those who trust him fully. He sustains, he strengthens, he guides, and he fulfills what he begins in a surrendered heart. Walk forward with humility, courage, and unwavering trust, knowing that every step taken in obedience draws you closer to the purpose God has prepared, and the same God who carried you through what seemed impossible remains faithful, present, and worthy of your complete devotion now and always.